Good morning children. I hope you all are fine and have gone through the yesterday's video. In the yesterday's video, we discussed about the human circulatory system, and I told you the main components of the human circulatory system are the heart, which is the main pumping organ, are the blood vessels, that is the arteries, veins and capillaries, and the third is the blood. We discussed about the blood and its components. We discussed about the functions of the blood. Blood carries all the food, digested food, oxygen, and also brings in the carbon dioxide. So it is the only fluid which is circulating through the blood vessels and is supplying all these materials to the body cells. Then we discussed the comparison between the arteries and the veins, and through one important diagram I told you how the exchange of substances occurs. The diagram was like that food and oxygen from the arteries diffuse into the body cells, and the carbon dioxide from the body cells diffuses into the capillaries, and which is then removed out in the form of deoxygenated blood through veins. Later we discussed about the structure of the heart. The heart, as I told you, consists of 4 chambers, the 2 auricles and 2 ventricles. The 2 auricles are right auricle and left auricle. The 2 ventricles are right ventricle and left ventricle. The right side of the heart is separated from left side of the heart through a septum. The heart is enclosed in a sac-like structure which is called as pericardium. This pericardium is filled with pericardial fluid. Right auricle is separated from right ventricle through a valve, that is the tricuspid valve, which is V2. But the left auricle is separated from the left ventricle through a bicuspid valve, which is V1. The important function of these valves that they prevent the backflow of the blood. As soon as the ventricles contract, which you understand in the functioning of the heart also, as soon as the ventricles contract, these valves V1 and V2, they close so that the blood doesn't go back into the auricles. The main arteries and the main veins which enter into the heart, which carry the blood into the heart and take the blood to the lungs and to the body organs are, number 1 is the inferior vena cava, number 2 is the superior vena cava. This inferior and superior vena cava brings deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body into the right auricle. Then we have pulmonary artery. From the right ventricle, this pulmonary artery, it carries the deoxygenated blood into the lungs for oxygenation. Remember, all the arteries, they carry oxygenated blood except pulmonary artery. All the veins carry deoxygenated blood except pulmonary vein. So the pulmonary vein, it carries oxygenated blood from lungs to the left auricle. The oxygenated blood then goes into the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle it enters into the aorta, from where it gets distributed into the various arteries. This is about the structure. Other than this, you could see these semilunar valves. These semilunar valves are present at the origin of aorta and at the origin of the pulmonary artery. They also prevent the backflow of blood. So the main function of valves is to prevent the backflow of blood. This is all about the structure of the heart, and now through a different diagram, through a simplified diagram, we will understand about the functioning of the heart. Thank you.
Yes children, let us now start with the working of the heart. Remember bache, the heart beats or the heart pumps the blood due to the contraction and relaxation of the auricles and the ventricles. Both the auricles contract together and both the ventricles contract and relax together. It is actually a cardiac cycle which runs, and there are 3 phases of the cardiac cycle. But you understand the working through the various steps. Look at this diagram. I have marked the steps as 1 to 6. First of all, what happens is the oxygenated blood from the lungs enters into the left auricle through the pulmonary vein. Okay. At the same time, the deoxygenated blood from the superior and the inferior vena cava enters to the right auricle. At this stage, all the cardiac muscles of 4 chambers of the heart are at the relaxed state. We call it as the joint diastole. Then what happens is the left auricle contracts and the blood moves through the valve V1, which is also known as bicuspid valve, and the blood is forced into the left ventricle. At the same time, deoxygenated blood from the right auricle goes into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve, that is the V2. This was the second phase where 2 auricles were contracting. When 2 auricles contract, we call this phase as auricular systole. Systole means contraction, diastole means relaxation. So when 2 auricles contract, the blood enters into the ventricles through the valves. This phase is the auricular systole. Now what happens? Oxygenated blood that has entered into the left auricle has been pushed into the left ventricle. As the left ventricle contracts, V1 closes. As the right ventricle contracts, V2 closes, so that the blood is not pushed back into the auricles. It is not moving back into the auricles. So remember the function of valves to prevent the backflow of blood. So when the ventricles contract, left ventricle contracts and pushes the blood into the oxygenated blood into the main artery, that is the aorta. From the aorta, the blood gets distributed through the arteries and reaches to the various body organs. When the right ventricle contracts, it pushes the deoxygenated blood into the pulmonary artery, and from the pulmonary artery it goes into the lungs, where in the alveoli of the lungs exchange of gases takes place. Now again look at these steps. When the muscles of all the 4 chambers of the heart are relaxed, pulmonary vein brings oxygenated blood into the left auricle. When the left auricle contracts, the blood is forced into the left ventricle. When the left ventricle contracts, V1 closes and the blood is pushed into the aorta, from where it reaches into the body organs. From the body organs, the blood carries the carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide rich blood is called deoxygenated blood, which through the superior and the inferior vena cava enters into the right auricle. Now when the right auricle contracts, the blood enters into the right ventricle. When the right ventricle contracts, V2 closes so that blood is not pushed back, and during the contraction of right ventricle, the blood from the pulmonary artery goes into the lungs for the exchange, and this process continues. One contraction and relaxation of the auricles and the ventricles constitutes the cardiac cycle. Entire cardiac cycle, one cardiac cycle takes 0.8 seconds. 0.1 second is the joint diastole, 0.4 seconds is the auricular systole, and 0.3 seconds is the ventricular systole. You need not to go in detail with the timings, just understand the steps through which the pathway which is followed by the blood. Now bache, you have seen that the blood enters into the heart twice. That is why the type of circulation in blood in human heart is called as double circulation. Let us now discuss about the double circulation. Thank you.